So I was a real oddball as a child, reading, like a girl, reading comics and riding my BMX and skateboarding, living Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. It's just, I didn't have any friends at all. I got bullied at school. It was pretty shit.
So like trapped between the boys and the girls, I guess. Like the traditional views of what a boy and a girl are, I guess.
Yeah, because I was like a total tomboy, like on my BMX, and so like when I was pretty young, all my friends were boys. We used to make like BMX ramps in the middle of the garages on the street where we used to live, and that was my childhood, like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings animation, and my BMX.
BMX is a thing that like people don't talk about much anymore.
Yeah,
but like we're about the same age, and so like when I was a kid, even in like and I wasn't really into it, but all my friends would like do the jumps and dirt bike kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was super good on my BMX.
Yeah.
Lots of tricks.
I'm not surprised that you were super good at something.
We used to build these crazy ramps out of like ramshackle bricks and pieces of wood and things we could buy, and just each time make it higher and higher, and just like bomb off them and our BMXs until somebody got seriously hurt, and then we'd call it quits for the day.
Right. You're like, thank God for the National Health Service. I just picture, all these like super posh British doctors going like, we've got to stop these BMXs.
But they're out of control, these BMXs. These BMXing children.
So was the drawing, that was because of like loving stuff like Star Wars and...
Yeah, so when I was young, growing up, like all the movie illustrated Marvel tie-ins, you know, like the Archie Goodwin, Now Williamson, Howard Chaykin doing Star Wars, all that kind of stuff, Blade Runner adaptations, that was my thing when I was growing up. I absolutely loved that stuff, and especially like my thing as a child was Daredevil. It was Frank Miller's Daredevil. Because I loved it so much as a kid and teenager, like I was always in and out of comic shops, and then, you know, as you get older, you get to your teens and you need a job, and then you're like going in and asking if they'll take you on, and they did. And so I started working at a comic shop called Space Odyssey, I think when I was about 17, 18, and then moved to another comic shop called Twilight Zone, and then one called Traveling Man. And Traveling Man like helps put on Thought Bubble and funds a lot of that, helps do what we do.
And that was your idea though, right?
Thought Bubble, yeah, it's all mine.
When you were working at Traveling Man.
Yeah, I just I thought it'd be really good to create some kind of community event based around comics, all the comics that I love, and using that medium to put on workshops for young people and adults, and caught on from there. It was like, I was only planning to do it 1 year, but it just went so crazy and had so much great feedback that it was something that I needed to carry on.
It's the highest compliment I can give is that I grew up going to Heroes Con from the time I was like, you know, 9 years old. And Heroes was to me like...
So that made you what you are.
Right. And so when first time I went to Thought Bubble, I was like, oh my God, there's another one.
Like, there aren't many events like that around that just focus purely on comics and nothing else, but that involve the whole of comics, the superhero remit, Marvel, DC, indie. You know, comics as a medium is like, it's so massive, but at the same time so small, and everybody in it is, even though they're working under different publishers and writing different stories, they're all doing the same kind of thing.
Right.
And the big thing that I push at Thought Bubble as well is like, it's really important to try and get new people in to appreciate the medium and understand it, but to understand that comics aren't you know, aren't solely for people that want to go out and buy monthly publications. People go out and buy graphic novels, books, but also comics as a medium is so important for storytelling, dialogue, script writing, storyboarding, concept art. It's a gateway to so much else.
Yeah,
you can learn anything.
A gateway and a foundation, right? And for people like little girls riding their BMX bikes in the middle of England, it's like, you know, what were you gonna do back then? You weren't gonna be able to get your hands on a big fancy camera,
no.
Right? And writing
I just drew.
Right.
I love drawing.
And writing for me, I don't know if this is the case for you, but like writing at the time, I was already a writer, but it felt like schoolwork.
Yeah.
Right?
It was always really hard for me because I'm dyslexic, so I always struggled with writing, reading, writing, any kind of written form. But you know, comics helped me understand that and learn to read and learn to write. It's like comics informed more of that in me than school did, really. You know, you were kind of just cast off as being a kid that wasn't very bright, and you know, you get older and you understand the world more, and you realise that I am very intelligent and I am worthwhile. I can read. I just needed to be taught differently. And you know, my dyslexia has informed who I am and made me think differently to a lot of people around me, because I don't usually have a normal thought process. I'm always, like, the way I think about things is a bit outside the box, because it's how I've had to learn. Nice.
What about when you started working at the comic shop? You already like doing art. Had you like tried to pursue?
I always, I mean, I did art at university, so I did a degree in fine art, and further education, I was doing art courses and pursuing art that I loved, but I grew up in an environment where you were told it's not, you know, I could do it for pleasure. Like, there were student grants back then, which students don't have now, and so I had the ability to go to college and do this stuff and to be told that I would never have a career in it, but I just wanted to do it anyway. And so I grew up thinking that, you know, wanting to be a comic book artist was something that could never ever happen.
Right.
I'd never get paid for that kind of thing, never make a career from it. It was just completely off limits. And so, you know, I just kept reading comics and living them and working around comics, but never thinking that I would actually work within them.
Did you start getting work before the show, or did that come as a result of it?
It was a thought bubble that I just got to know people in the industry, and then that was around the time that Instagram and Twitter and all these social media platforms were just taking off, and you know, I just started being a part of that, putting information online, information about Thought Bubble or various other things, and I got an Instagram account and started posting my art on there, and suddenly all the people that attended Thought Bubble in the industry that knew me were like, holy shit, you can draw, and I'm like, can I just draw for myself? I don't think it's very good. It's like everything has been about a lack of confidence, not pursuing dreams and doing what I want to do, is because I've been told I can't do it or I'm not good enough, and then I just think it's out of limits to me. But you know, knowing people in the industry and putting my art up there, you get a lot of positive feedback online about your art, and it kind of fuels you. And so very quickly after that, I started getting jobs with DC, Vertigo, Marvel, and then all the publishers, and it's just crazy. It's not stopped. Like, I've just walked straight into my dream job without kind of really, I say without really trying to get that, but the fact is I've drawn my entire life, so I've just pursued drawing and drawing well and drawing for myself. So
that's got to give you a different outlook on it too, because so many
people. I can't quite get my head around it. Like when people ask me about it, because I've never actively thought I want to be a comic book artist and I'm going to try and get my work out there and do this. It's just something I've done for myself, and then luckily it's developed into me being employed because people like my art. Well, I still can't quite get my head around it.
A lot of people in this business have a hard time, or in this art form, I guess, have a hard time because they think the results are the only thing that matter. Like there's like an end goal, and if you don't hit it, you failed.
Yeah.
You know, and I think if you came at it from an angle of like,
it's love.
The journey, yeah.
Love in the medium.
Right.
And every time you know, picking up an issue of Daredevil and reading Frank Miller and looking at Klaus Janson and Frank Miller's art, and you know, just really loving it and not thinking I want to draw as well as that, but the more you read it, you understand the medium and the way panels flow and the, you know, how to stage scenes. You know, it's being comics literate. You understand the process and the way things should flow and how to tell a story visually. That just feeds back into what I was saying earlier, how important comics is to understanding filmmaking, directing, cinematography, you know, all these other things.
Well, you know, it's funny because I harp a lot about how I think you have to be analytical to do this job on some level, because a lot of it is reverse engineered.
What do you mean?
You start with an end product and then you try to figure out how they made it. I mean, I guess when you're talking about being dyslexic and being,
that was from when I went,
you know, unable to see or relate to things the same way as other people, you spend your whole life, you gotta take a left, think. You spend your whole life, yeah, this is it. You spend your whole life sort of trying to reverse engineer.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, because of your dyslexia.
That's absolutely. I've never heard anyone talk about it in that way before. That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's like knowing the point that everyone else is at and how you understand and get to it, and so you are constantly taking this different path.
Right.
To learning.
Right. So you develop your own system.
Yeah.
For learning it.
Yeah. To learning and to cope and to understand.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes comics like really important to people who don't have other outlets of creativity, because you can, like you said, there's a way to get to these other things if you want it.
Yeah.
We did it. We solved world hunger. We solved this damn BMX epidemic. BMX-ademic.
BMX-ademic. I love that one.